The Great Canadian Social Engineering and Gaslighting Campaign is well underway, and Big Brother, on behalf of the party, is hoping to have successfully thrown the last 5 years into the memory hole. All 13 Canadian premiers gather in Washington, D.C. to make sure that even though they're ruining Canada with their Marxist ideas and cooperation with Justin Trudeau, Trump's tariffs, that's the real enemy. This week, as in today and tomorrow, February 13th and 14th, a federal court will hear a legal challenge to the prorogation of Parliament by our prime tyrant, Justin Trudeau. Our elected officials are all saying that they want to save Canada. And that's quite a shame considering they've been working together over the past 5 years to plunge Canada into economic and moral ruin. It's February 13th. I'm Andrew D. Bartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you conservative Canadian news and analysis from an unapologetically Christian perspective. Make sure you like and subscribe to our Rumble and YouTube channels. Be sure to like where you listen. And if you like what we do, you know what to do. Also, be 100% sure to go over to ldcanada.substack.com and sign up for our email list. You can subscribe over there. And if you would love to support the show, become a paid subscriber. We see the numbers of subscribers going up and up and up. And the number of paid subscribers helping support this show is
$10
amazing.
a month, $100 a year.
Yes,
Those are
and
our levels.
We're so thankful for any help and support, because it really does go a long way at making it viable for us to do the show, to bring on guests that you like, to spend the time to delve deeper into all the subjects that we're touching on the show, so we can bring you the best content that we possibly can. And we're bringing you even more content this new year than we were the last year and a bit. We have brought back the news brief, which you can get in your inbox when we release it if you subscribe to our email list over at ldcanada.substack. It's beautiful. It looks great. Andrew, you've been killing it as far as curating some really good news stories for everybody. And the reason you want to go over to Substack is because we have some really, really wonderful interviews coming up, and you're going to only be able to get a few of the interviews in their entirety to start with, and then most of the interviews are going to be behind the paywall. Like Andrew said, it's really low barrier of entry, $100 a year, $10 a month, whatever you want to choose. That's how you can support the show. It really does help go a long way. And you can expect to see some wonderful interviews with Dr. Joe Boot coming up, Dr. P. Andrew Sandlin, a friend of the show, a mentor. We're going to be talking to him about what a sanctified state looks like. So if you want to hear a positive, prescriptive, principled biblical vision for what governance actually looks like, you're going to want to go over to ldcanada.substack.com to hear that interview when it drops, which we are super, super excited about. Andrew, good to see you again, brother. We're both wearing our BullBitcoin merch.
Mm-hmm.
We're decked out. We're swagged out. How are you doing?
I'm not as cold as you are up in Winterpeg, which is why you have the 2 God.
Dude, it's like minus 40 today. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's not that.
We've
here.
been in the deep freeze, man.
Yeah, little bit of snow here. Not complaining so much, but
yeah,
but doing well. One of the twins is teething very aggressive the last couple of days, but we're good. We're gonna make it through.
Speaking of twins, shout out to Theo and Megan Wiebke, 2 members of our church. They just had 2 twin boys yesterday, so praise the Lord for that. He's adding to his people, and we're so excited for them. And
now I know who that is. This Theo Wiebke keeps liking all our stuff on social media, so he goes to your church. That's why I like this.
Yeah. He's one of our members. And actually, weirdly enough, he grew up in London, and I think went to same school with like McKenna's kids, or like, same homeschool program. And then he was attending Nate's church for a while. Small world. But shout out to them. They're great people, and I'm very, very happy for them. Twins, man. Good on all you getting twins.
That's what we planned for. All right. So
everybody plans for it. Yeah.
When you think about twins, you think about, man, that's the sort of energy it would take to successfully raise twins when you're 40 and 41. And thinking about how hard it is to find energy or electrolyte drinks, protein shakes, or anti-inflammatories that enhance your workout without defeating their point, because they end up filling you with sugar, chemicals, fillers, and all sorts of food dyes made from crushed up synthesized bugs, by the way, which is gross. That's how they make food dyes. That's why you need to try Plexus. Supplements with the highest quality, all natural ingredients that not only avoid the garbage, but support your gut in restoring gut health. Whether flushing toxins or restoring nutrients, you will see a tangible difference. Whether you're prepping for a marathon or day-to-day demands that feel like a marathon themselves, these products are clean, nutritional fuel that you can trust. If you're looking to enhance your health, you can email healthandliberty@proton.me. A rep will be happy to help you decide whether this is a good fit for you and also hook you up with a discount. So the best way that you can find out more and get the products that you need is email healthandliberty, health and A-N-D liberty @proton.me. This Saturday, February the 15th, is Canadian Flag Day. Now, what is Canadian Flag Day? Maybe you've never heard of it before. Well, on the same day, February 15th in 1965, our Canadian flag was first raised on Parliament Hill. Now, we want to show you... Are you
allowed to do that anymore, Andrew?
You're allowed to do that now, as long as you're not speaking against the state. Don't get ahead of us, Matt. We have emotions we want to tug on in due time. So this is a video from Canadian Heritage. If you go to the Government of Canada website, this is Canadian Heritage calling on all Canadians to raise their flags proudly this Saturday, followed by Pierre Poilievre using the Canadian flag as a prop, calling for a renewed sense of national pride, Canada first, all that stuff. So here are the two videos back to back.
This year, we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the National Flag of Canada. At the stroke of noon on February 15th, 1965,
the red and white maple leaf flag was raised for the very first time on Parliament Hill.
The flag is a symbol that unites Canadians
and reflects the common values we take pride in.
Opportunity.
Be united. Democracy.
pride,
freedom,
patriotism.
It allows us to come together and all truly feel Canadian.
If your blood is boiling right now, it should be.
Take a moment to reflect on Canadian values
and what the flag means to you.
Let's celebrate together.
Let's celebrate together.
Happy National Flag of Canada Day.
Happy National Flag of Canada Day.
Beautiful.
Hi, everyone. With the threat of tariffs and other insults, Canadians are uniting like never before around our pride and love in our great country. And what better way to do it than raising the flag? This Saturday is, in fact, Flag Day. So I'm encouraging everyone, regardless of your political allegiance, to go out, get yourself a flag, big or small. Put it on a flagpole in front of your home or through your window or in any other way that you can show our colors. We're very proud of this country. We'll never be the 51st state. We will always be a strong, self-reliant, sovereign country. So let's show that message by raising the flag.
There you go, man. Are you pumped? Are you pumped?
Nope.
Make
Nope, not at
Canada
all.
great again.
Nope. Furious. I'm furious. Absolutely furious when I see that, actually. I was talking about it with friends
why
today
are
at
you
work.
such a cold-hearted
Oh,
Scrooge,
brother.
Andrew?
So I remember a time not too long ago, wasn't that long ago, when Canadians all over our country did exactly what Canadian Heritage and Pierre Poilievre just said. They gathered together in large numbers all over the country,
I
but
seem to remember that too.
primarily concentrated in our nation's capital, in front of the same Parliament Hill where the Canadian flag was raised for the first time in 1965. And I remember they were proud to be Canadian. I remember long, loud singings of "O Canada." I remember flags being waved and draped. I mean, a sea of flags like I've never seen before.
People were wearing them.
Wearing flags painted on their face. And they were declaring their love for Canada and all the things that they just talked about, the importance of freedom and democracy and what makes Canada Canada, and how we are all free citizens and we need to celebrate what Canada is and what it represents. I remember that not that long ago. Now, I also remember how the state responded to them. I also remember what legacy media had to say about it. I also remember what a lot of those people in that video thought about or said about or did toward this group of Canadians who love their country so much to celebrate in Ottawa in the coldest time of the year, in temperatures colder than where you are right now in Winterpeg, Matt. Interestingly enough, also around February 15th. I remember this is from January 29th to February 19th, where this was a 3-week period where this happened. So they
got the hero's welcome, obviously.
Well, what were the majority of Canadians thinking then? You know, I wonder if only we could go back and relive this moment where Canadians did wave their flag proudly because they love their country.
Perhaps we can.
After discussing with Cabinet and Caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
Oh, come on through. Come on through. What is happening here? Wow, what is this lady doing? Trampling horses. Struggling. Stop it. Stop it. What? Oh my God. Oh my God. Fuck down. Goose. 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 Okay. On out of the car.
From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Beautiful montage of how our government really thinks of people who hold Canadian flags on Parliament. And for those of you who aren't watching the show, this is the reason why you got to watch the show. But it was a wonderful montage that Andrew put together of the brutal police force that was brought in to quell the trucker convoy, obviously, not too long ago. And as we know, many of those people, like you said, Andrew, were the most patriotic people that were so patriotic, in fact, that they were willing to, in love for their country, do something that was difficult to try and reform it, right? To put themselves in harm's way to see it reformed. And you can't reform that which you don't love. And that's ultimately why the left it can only destroy nations, because they fundamentally hate them and they hate their past and they hate their history. You can't reform that which you hate. You can only destroy it.
I didn't even because of time constraint, but I'll just mention it anyways. But during the 1 year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy, which would have been a year later, which was 2 years ago now, during the 1 year anniversary, I was in Ottawa with Josh and Nick Alexander and Monty and the other Save Canada boys.
Yeah.
And during the 1 year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy, Monty and Nick Alexander were arrested on Parliament Hill for waving Canadian flags.
Literally.
They were told explicitly by the Parliamentary Police Service not to be waving flags on Parliament Hill. And because they were on Parliament Hill, again, so this would have been, it may not have been on February 15th. I think it was February 17th. So 2 days after National Flag Day, 2023, two young men were waving their Canadian flags proudly on Parliament Hill, and they were arrested for it by the Parliamentary Police Service.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not much of a flag. It's not much of a flag if you can only wave it on one day, right?
Yeah. When the state tells you to, when they tell you it's appropriate to wave the flag
in appropriate areas that they deem fit.
Before we're going to say a few other things. I just want to make sure I get this out before we move on. But those videos are not from my phone, but I have videos from my phone. I was there for all of that. Like a lot of that. I saw that happen in real time. I was in that same group of people being pushed off Wellington. I saw it happen. And I guess I say this with many people who are sympathetic. I know there are people who watch that. It's probably difficult for them. It's difficult for me to watch it again. And people who are thinking the same way. Though in my heart, I have not adopted a position of hatred and malice toward very evil people. That's true in my heart. I will, not because of bitterness, but because of the cost and the circumstance, I will never forget. I will never forget what happened, and I'll never forget the people until they're willing to fully repent. I'm never going to forget what the same people who are saying be proud now, what they were doing to us those 3 weeks in Ottawa. Anyways, so that's
the
Flag Day this Saturday.
Yeah, that's the sad reality that we wanted to bring to people's minds. The sad reality is that everyone who's going gaga for the flag right now, who's going flag crazy this weekend, everyone who is now suddenly all of a sudden very patriotic, very Canada loving, is a downright flaming hypocrite. There's no two ways about it, because they don't love Canada or our flag, and they certainly are not proud to be Canadian when it's only convenient to them. That's what we've seen. We know that these people truly hate freedom and all that Canada has historically stood for. They have just found a common enemy in this very moment, which is probably the lowest IQ form of patriotism that you could possibly have. It's just like some non-player person, NPC level stuff going on here. So, and the fact is, all this patriotism seems to be centering around one enemy, and that enemy is Donald Trump and his supposed tariff threats, which obviously have not been levied up to this point. But these people did nothing when Trudeau was crushing our freedoms, or all the while his spending and carbon tax is just decimating our nation. It's leaving us an economic, a wasteland. It's truly a carnage that is going to be far worse than Trump's tariffs ever will be. And this is how we're treating ourselves. This is how our leaders are treating their own citizens. But it's convenient for us to look down south and say Orange Man is bad, and then all of a sudden go rah, rah, rah. That is some low-level IQ stuff. And we would just call people to be more consistent in their patriotism. And sometimes patriotism, like I said, requires saying hard things, pushing for reform, because you understand the cancer that's in the bones of the nation and you want to rid it from it. So anyways, here's an article from the Ottawa Citizen back in 2022 talking about Canada Day 2022 and just how much our elite and status love our Canadian flag. Not. Here's the article. Quote, for many years, there was a Canadian flag hanging from the balcony of an 8th-floor apartment near Bank and McLaren Streets. No one likely ever questioned what this one or the others meant. No one had to. Until now, that is. Now that it's no longer there. There's every chance that Canada's 155th birthday on Friday will be loudly celebrated, as it had for years, until two events. First, the COVID-19 pandemic, and second, the discovery of the unmarked graves of possibly hundreds of Indigenous children, left few in party mood. The 2022 version of Canada Day, however, promises to be quite different. Among the throngs of revelers will be members of Veterans for Freedom and their ilk, groups that support the Freedom Convoy in scare quotes, that for a month this past winter and since co-opted the Canadian flag, there you go, as parts of its multi-pronged attack against vaccine and mask mandates, the Trudeau government, diversity, and other issues it feels are blights on their notion of freedom. For many watching from the opposite side of the ideological spectrum, their appropriation of the maple leaf as proof of their patriotism is not dissimilar to how January 6 rioters at the U.S. Capitol gussied up their insurrection with a jingoism bedazzled with glittering stars and stripes. Andrew, this is garbage.
You know what, Matt? This is what the Ottawa Citizen thought. This is what the entire legacy media narrative was. This is what all of our elected officials were saying. And you know what? Shame on the many Canadians, maybe even the majority of Canadians believe this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is not a minority view.
It's brutal. Article continues. Sadly, the sight of the Canada's flag for many is accompanied by the sickly feeling that comes with the knowledge that the core beliefs we've always recognized as inherently Canadian are not so universal, and that the beliefs many are noisily defending and loyalty professed by these groups are not what the flag should inspire. So apparently the Canadian flag doesn't stand for constitutional rights, historical freedoms, rule of law, supremacy of God. No, apparently, Andrew, it stands for progressive bureaucracy, globalistic movements.
And I'll also note that since now we know that the Emergencies Act was not invoked with a justified cause, so
lawfully,
right. That was lawless. Okay, the masks do nothing and the mandates did nothing. Do you think the Ottawa citizens are going to retract that story? Of course not.
No.
So this is the gaslighting. This is the social engineering gaslighting campaign that we are in the throes of right now. Being told that, so it's good to be proud to be Canadian and wave your flag now, not less than a half a decade ago.
Which is honestly dance monkey stuff, right? You'll dance when we tell you to dance. It's not time to be patriots. So you stay at home, put 10 masks on, and get 47 vaccines for you and everyone you know.
Yeah.
Until Trump comes out. So, hey, maybe the greatest thing that Trump's done for Canadian morale is his threatened tariffs. Maybe he was just trying to get Canadians to actually band together and work together and not be a total country divided in this threat, because apparently that's all we can do, because we don't have an actual identity, because we don't have shared loves. All we can do is band together against things that we are supposed to hate,
right?
Probably even shouldn't hate. Anyways.
So Alex Klusterman, friend of the show, pastor at Hill City Baptist Church, co-host on the Dominion podcast, owner of Resistance Coffee, and all-around wonderful brother. He had a rock-solid post on Facebook yesterday, and I want to read the thing in its entirety as he's reflecting on this gaslighting social engineering campaign right now. Quote, "I find the suddenly found patriotism deeply repulsive. It is not patriotism. Patriotism is born out of a common love for our fellow citizens and nation. For the average participant, I suspect it is born out of resentment and hate towards Trump. But having a common enemy is not the same as having a common love. The main proponents of Flag Day stood idly by as their flag was literally trampled by state goons in their capital city. They stood idly by, or even cheered, for the most devastating authoritarianism our country has ever seen. They didn't say a thing when others suffered. For the ruling class, it is purely a political marketing campaign. They are successfully manufacturing a new crisis with a new enemy to hate, and surprise, positioning themselves as the unifying saviors of the nation they denied existed until 5 minutes ago. That so many Canadians are falling for such a cynical and shameful political ploy is embarrassing and further evidence of our moral corruption. All of this is a vain and self-righteous avoidance of our own sins and failures as a nation, and a hypocritical refusal to love our nation. Our smug and fake moral superiority will be our ruin." Close quote. Alex and I have talked often about the irony of Canadians priding themselves on not being like Americans. When you know what, let's just, and I'm not an anti-Canada. We're worse. Okay. Listen to me. We're worse. And here's why we're worse. Per capita, we murder more preborn babies every year than the United States. As a percentage of the population, we're more bloodthirsty than they are towards the preborn. Our doctor-assisted murder, we lead the world. We're world leaders on doctor-assisted murder, way worse than the States. We legalized sodomite unions before the United States did. We removed all barriers to preborn baby murder before the United States did. We're significantly more socialistic than they are. The entire legacy media apparatus is entirely state-funded and state-run here. So and from personal experience,
and we're pompous.
When you compare, I've lived in Toronto. I've been to New York City. As much as I do not desire to live in New York City, which is supposed to be the worst American city with the meanest people, people in New York City were substantially kinder and friendlier than Torontonians, looking you in the eye, shaking a hand, holding the door open for you. So as much as we pride ourselves as not being American, in many, many ways, and in many important ways, we are much worse than Americans. And so it's ironic that we pride ourselves on being better. We are so deceived. So deceived.
Yeah. No, and that's something that we need to disabuse ourselves as Canadians. The idea, and we talked about this. The only identity that Canadians have is that we're not Americans. That's not an identity.
Right.
all you're doing is you don't know what you are or who you are. You're just identifying that you're not that other thing. That's some low IQ stuff there. And that's why us as a nation, if we really want to see things reformed, we have to find out what it is that makes Canada great, grab hold of that again, and push for the necessary reforms to take place in our country, and do it out of a love for our nation, for its heritage, for its creeds, its early creeds that we've, as hypocrites, as those who have taken the Lord's name in vain, have turned our backs on. And that's why make Canada great again. Merch. I got toques on today. You can get hats. Go over to Mega, MEHGA.ca. Check it out. Get it, because this is this is a hat that says we want to reform a nation that we love, and it has the colors. This is a good way to protest globalism, all the nonsense, and do this while waving a flag, not on Flag Day as some sort of gimmick, but throughout the year as true Canadian patriots. And hey, listen, we got the Four Nations Cup going on. I know that always engenders some patriotism when we get Canada's best hockey players playing the world's best hockey players. I'm sure the Canada-US game will be something else. But those are there's something much more pure and patriotic in that kind of love, because we know who ours are. We know who our team is.
What was the hockey game where the Canadian fans were booing when the American national anthem was being sung? Was that a basketball game or a hockey game? This was recently.
I think
where they were singing.
So
They were singing. I think it might have been a hockey game. If anyone was watching the show, send us an email and let us know. But basically,
I think it was a Toronto game, and I think it was juxtaposed by the fact that the same thing happened in in America a week before or after, and they all started singing "Oh Canada."
I know. So So for everyone, and again, it would make sense if it's Toronto, because Toronto is the worst place in the country to live. Toronto, unequivocally.
I don't know.
Unequivocally.
There's a lot of competition.
Toronto, no. Toronto is the only city in the nation that over the last 10 years has seen a year-over-year increase in gun violence. The only city in the country that has seen a year-over-year gun violence is at an all-time high. Real estate is untenable. Governance in Toronto, they elected a 100% full-on Marxist. Toronto is the worst.
Too. She's stupid.
If you're in Toronto, I'm sorry to tell you this, you live in the worst city in the country. Toronto is the worst place
in the world.
and arguably, I would say the meanest, most unfriendly people in the country are in Toronto. Certainly the bus drivers. Toronto public transit, they are the most unfriendly, sour-faced bunch you will ever encounter.
They probably got to deal with a lot of stuff.
Nevertheless,
it's not.
When you're in a booth in the subway station and it's a bulletproof booth, and you don't have to worry about anything other than sitting there and having people put their tokens in, and you have a killer union, you're making a ton of money. I'm sorry. Put a smile on you, bum. Give me a break. So just
tell us how you really feel about Toronto. Andrew.
No. But
are you a Leafs fan?
Oh, please. So all that to say to everyone who was in the stadium booing the singing of the national anthem, honestly, shame on you. Shame on you. You know, the reason why other countries haven't invaded Canada is because the United States protects us. Do you really think that Russia and China haven't come for us yet because of their benevolence? Because they're afraid we're going to throw hot poutine on them? Like, do you really think that's what's going on here? We exist as a country, and we have not been taken over yet by a more powerful nation because the United States protects us, and we pay nothing for their military support. Are you kidding me? Like, unbelievable.
That's the really galling part in all of this, and where unless if you're totally, like, your brain's totally off and you are an NPC, like you're just a cog in the machine, where you truly have to say there is a cognitive dissonance here. Like, the world has been living under the Pax Americana for a long time, and they've been, as we're seeing with the USAID stuff, they've been funding all sorts of things across the entire world that do not benefit their nation, and then obviously offering the vast majority of protection that keeps the free world, for lack of a better term, free and safe, all while we are belly aching against everything they do. And whenever they don't have a dotard or a completely incompetent liberal fool running their nation, then all of a sudden we, want to say that all they are backwards hicks, and
and I want to be clear as well.
Down our noses at them.
I'm not a Canada hater. I love Canada. I love being here.
No.
I love this country. I had a chance to leave. I had a chance, and I had all the systems in place to welcome my family with open arms during the most intensity of it. And it's not very difficult for me. I could find employment down there. I have hookups. So I'm not saying I want to go to America and be an American and I'm done with Canada. No. I love this country. I want to die here, and I want to work towards seeing reform and seeing the establishment. So my heart is fully on board with commitment to Canada. I'm just being honest about the fact that you can love your country and still not be I was going to say something, but I don't want to say it. I want to catch myself. Not be a jerk there. You can love your country. It was much less sanctified. The spirit really grabbed me in that moment. It was going to come out, and then God stopped me. So you can love your country and not be a self-righteous, deceived jerk about other countries, which is only right and fair. So and everyone who's now gung-ho about the flag, who was okay when police officers from all over the country were ripping Canadian flags out of people's hands, and you celebrated that too, shame on you as well. You should be ashamed of yourself. Inflation through the roof.
Grocery prices up 11% year over year.
Censorship of dissident voices. Freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want?
Basic income!
With the basic income, I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming for your money.
Is Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at BullBitcoin have one mission: destroy central banking. BullBitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin, allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag, click on the link below, and start buying Bitcoin today and get a $20 bonus as a listener of Liberty Dispatch.
I want to run through walls again. That's a common occurrence after.
Or watch Inception. I want to run through walls or watch Inception.
Yeah,
all that video is missing is a
Yeah. Yeah. Where's those 808s? Next time I expect it to drop them. Yeah, I got to queue them up. Maybe I'll queue them up in the soundboard.
We have an interview coming up for you all soon with Pablo, who's the Bitcoin evangelist, and it's going to be really, really good. We also have, I don't want to say anything now, but when we drop our interview with Pablo, we will be announcing a very exciting, very informative, amazing thing that we're going to be doing with BullBitcoin exclusively for our audience.
Yeah.
And also free. So if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what to tell you. Watch that video again and get excited. So
yeah, and I'm stoked to meet our people, stoked to learn a lot more about Bitcoin, and have some real good talks about economic freedom in the midst of, let's just be honest, a horrible stagflationary cycle in Canada. You saw the inflation numbers, Andrew? They're real bad. They're real. Yeah. Zero Hedge posted it. I called it, and now it's, I think, coming out. Biden, a bunch of these central banks across the world were burying their inflation statistics.
The consumer price index in the United States
to try and prop up the Dems, but it's coming out. I mean, our central banks have given up. Right, lowering the interest rates is allowing inflation to run rampant. Our country's been doing it. The states have been doing it a little bit less, but listen, that's a hidden tax that our government's putting on us, and they're destroying the wealth of hardworking Canadians. So that's why having alternatives like hedges, like gold and silver, hard metals, Bitcoin, all those things, very, very important to have, and it's important to be diversified. So, we're stoked to go over Bitcoin. You can get some sick merch. It says this, end the Fed or whatever. That's what they're all about on the back. So we love that messaging. But Andrew, we have to talk about more people, in keeping with the topic of people that are all of a sudden Canadian patriots, and the thing that they want to do most is save Canada while they've been destroying it at a rapid pace for the last many years. But here's a very interesting story that comes to us from the Western Standard. Apparently, Doug Ford is going to be Captain Canada. Oof. Man, that's a bad look. Anyways, in an unprecedented show of unity, all 13 Canadian premiers are in Washington, D.C. to push back against President Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, as well as possible future tariffs on more Canadian products. The delegation, led by Ontario Premier Doug Ford as chair of the Council of the Federation, met with U.S. Chamber of Commerce officials and lawmakers to warn that new duties would damage both national economies, as if they're unaware of the outcomes of the tariffs. Anyways, the joint mission marks the first time all provincial and territorial leaders have traveled together to the American capital. Period. That's pretty incredible. Their agenda includes meetings with Republican and Democrat members of Congress, labor representatives, and bilateral business advocates. So it sounds like a lot of wokies are in there. But anyways, the premiers are focusing their message on the integrated nature of Canadian American supply chains and manufacturing. The high-stakes mission comes amid escalating trade tensions following Trump's return to the White House in January and his attempts to reshape global trade policy through executive orders. Keep in mind, this is all while Donald Trump appears to still be rather serious about Canada being the 51st state. And we actually have a video towards that end, Andrew, that we want to play for everybody.
You announced tariffs on Canada and Mexico. You immediately got action from both of them on border security and drug interdiction.
I did. A lot of action.
Is that good enough?
Expected.
Is that good enough?
No, it's not good enough.
So more needed in 30 days.
Something has to happen. It's not sustainable. And I'm changing it.
You know, the Prime Minister said this weekend to a group of Canadian businessmen, he was at a private meeting, he said that your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year, essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
So there you have it. I'm on record as saying he's not serious about this.
Okay. I know you are, and he's so he must be playing a whole lot of hardball because he's been given every opportunity to ease up, and he keeps saying no, I'm serious.
He knows how to play chicken. He's like the brick is on the pedal. He's going until someone else flinches. That's what's happening.
When you get shot in the head, you're not afraid of.
No, yeah.
After you get shot in the head, you're kind of like, whatever. I'm not going to back down.
He probably figures somebody's going to kill him. Like he's just going for it. He's going full send. I mean, we've talked about it. Is it serious? Is it a bargaining chip? I tend to think it is a bargaining chip. You and I have talked about the pros and the cons of. Obviously, Canada couldn't be one state. That's obnoxious. Like that's not a real thing. They would have to do a lot of different things if Canada were to be annexed. But certainly, I think the most realistic scenario here is let's play this out. Is there any possible world where Canada gets annexed to the United States of America? I think it's very, very, very unlikely. Unless if they're going with this globalist thing that you were kind of mentioning, right? What was it called?
Well, the North American Union.
Yeah.
And I think so. Here's what I think the play is something like this. I think that Donald Trump wants to secure the safety and military strength of the United States. And in order to provide the kind of 360 protection and security that he would want for the United States, that also requires a measure of more than influence, but maybe some kind of control, or he holds at least one of the levers in the surrounding nations. So that's Mexico, Canada, Greenland, and the areas around us. It's in order to make sure that the United States is as safe as it can be, we have to control all the land around us as well, or we need to be sitting at the table of the decisions that these lands around us make in order that we can secure our safety. Well, I think something like that. Maybe.
No, and that's a really, really solid point, right? That's a very, very, very solid point. Because we talked about it when it comes to the fentanyl and the Chinese influence in Canada, that a lot of these tariffs, though they're being immediately directed against Canada and Mexico, they're indirect maneuvers against China, who is the bigger
and
threat
fentanyl,
against,
and that the fentanyl thing isn't even that the CCP is using the fentanyl trade as a cover for their extreme money laundering and for their control in Canada. The fentanyl, as bad of a problem as that is, they're just using the whole fentanyl trade as a way to launder money and have undue influence in Canada.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, it's a matter of CSIS fact. There is unbelievable amounts of Chinese foreign interference in Canada, right on top where the America's hat, right? The hat is bad. It's got a lot of corrupt actors in it, And the government's turned a blind eye to a lot of that stuff, probably because the palms are greased. So we shouldn't be surprised that Trump is paring back China by hitting out at Mexico and Canada, who have allowed all sorts of state influence and corruption into their nations, largely driven by Chinese influence. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Like that's the ball, I think, that we have to keep our eyes on. So I think militarily, it makes a lot of sense, especially Greenland. You know, there's probably something that they can work out a fair deal with Denmark to annex a nation that the Danes don't even seem to want to have. But how would it work with Canadians? Well, the bully pulpit kind of approach probably isn't going to work with Canadians because Canadians don't support it that much. So then what that would entail is, some sort of military force to take over Canada. I doubt that's ever on the table. Like not even realistic. The one thing that I could see, and maybe we can talk to, we've been talking with our friend Tim Stevens. He wrote a piece about it. Maybe we can get Michael Wagner on. It's one of our Alberta bros or whatever. The interesting piece to me is if these tariffs go on, does Alberta, right now they're presenting a common front, right? All the premiers are in DC. But if this goes into place, if once the economic impact starts coming into these various provinces on their resources, do the premiers actually maintain that united front? And does
I think Alberta, I think Daniel Smith will do what's best for Alberta.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's a bad thing from an Alberta perspective. So that's what I'm saying. Is there a scenario where if we're thinking possible ways that annexation or something takes place to that end, where Alberta says, we're in, come take us, and then something happens that way.
Then you can no longer drive to Vancouver. You can't drive to BC unless you pass through the States, unless you go all the way up and over Alberta into the territories. Getting to BC now requires international travel.
How would Canadian provinces survive? Right, like Alberta,
without Alberta subsidizing everything, and
how would we survive? How would we survive? The Maritimes would go under. They haven't had a profit. Like even Quebec.
Well, in all fairness, if all the climate alarmists were right, the Maritimes should already be underwater. So,
that's true.
The fact that they're not currently underwater, despite all the climate, so the fact that they got a second chance, right? They were given a new lease on life because they weren't literally sunk by global warming. They should be appreciative, and if they go under economically, Alberta's got to do what's good for Alberta.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we should maybe, I don't know, this is maybe a bigger conversation. It definitely is a bigger conversation. But it's like, a part of me always thinks that as much as I appreciate the breadth of Canada as a nation, and it's, raw, we're the second biggest landmass in the world as far as a country. I just think it's not a smart way to do civics is to have a massive landmass all under the same jurisdiction,
and 80% of the population of said landmass lives within like 100 kilometers of the border.
No, it's crazy. It's just not a good way to do things. And like I look at Switzerland and I'm like, man, they got a good thing going on there. They have like the amount of canton, like they're like a postage stamp of a nation, like landlocked postage stamp of a nation. I could fit into Canada thousands of times over, right? I think they have something over like 150 cantons or something like that, which are essentially provinces. In that, it's that sort of localism and federalism that I think makes a lot more sense than having a massive sprawling nation, especially without a good understanding of federalism in Canada's case, where so much of our governance happens top down, it's just, it leads to all sorts of bad blood, friction, all sorts of provincialism, territorialism, stuff like that. Anyways, that's beside the point. That was totally off script, but we're living in interesting times, Andrew, and we should be okay with asking interesting questions, right? Like, something that never ceases to amaze me is the lack of questions, especially that progressives want to ask, right? They want to, their Overton window is like this big. So they're like, anything outside of that 4x2, like, Overton window, like just a tiny little thing, don't ask, like, don't have a conversation about it. But I think we have to have these important conversations because we're living in interesting times, and I'm here for it. I'm here for seeing where all this goes.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. Lots of updates about the premiers and how their time in DC. I'm sure we'll bring that to you, and then I don't know, we'll see how Saturday goes with the flag waving day that's state approved. But if you're running a business, if you're communicating with customers, you know that that's essential. Maybe you're using MailChimp, Constant Contact, GoDaddy, or others to send out your monthly newsletter. I mean, that's great. But what if you could do that and automate all of your sales and marketing processes all in one system? SalesNexus is the place to automate email and text marketing campaigns and manage sales. It's simple to set up and has the features you need to grow your business. As a bonus, when you switch from MailChimp or Constant Contact, they will enrich your list with phone numbers and mailing addresses for everyone on your email list. It's an incredible offer from SalesNexus. So head over to salesnexus.com. Make sure you let them know that Liberty Dispatch sent you over to them. Again, that is salesnexus.com. Get the first 30 days for free. Wrapping up our episode, we have a news relief from the JCCF, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, regarding a challenge to the prorogation of Parliament by Justin Trudeau. And this is a little bit of a time-sensitive nature. So this is from the JCCF press release. Quote, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms announces that the federal court will hear the constitutional challenge to the decision to prorogue Parliament on Thursday and Friday, February 13th and 14th. That's today and tomorrow. Lawyers representing David McKinnon and Aris Lavranos will argue that the decision to prorogue Parliament was unlawful and that the federal court ought to determine the proper scope of the Prime Minister's power to advise a Governor General to prorogue Parliament. On January 6, 2025, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the decision to advise the Governor General to prorogue the 44th session of Parliament until March 24th, 2025. Prorogation is a suspension of all parliamentary activity. Lawyers funded by the Justice Center filed a notice of application against this decision on behalf of David McKinnon and Aris Lavranos on January 9th, 2025. The applicants seek a declaration from the federal court that the decision to advise the Governor General to prorogue Parliament was unlawful and that, therefore, Parliament has not been prorogued. On January 18, 2025, Chief Justice Paul S. Crampton of the federal court recognized the urgent, exceptional, and compelling issues raised by this prorogation challenge and granted an expedited hearing. Constitutional lawyer Hatim Kher stated, quote, as part of our submissions, we invite the court to find that the advice of the Prime Minister to the Governor General to prorogue Parliament was unlawful because it undermined Parliament's ability to hold government accountable, especially as Canada faces significant challenges from the United States, close quote. So my guess would be that for next week's news brief, there will be some more information regarding how the hearing went on Friday, which is tomorrow. And then part of the nature of this is the government is supposed to be prorogued until March 27th. And the Liberals have announced that they will have their leader March 9th. So I didn't read, this wasn't in the release, but if the judge finds that yes, prorogation was invalid, then upon that decision, Parliament is back in action immediately. So if on February 17th, the judge says, you know what, you're right, it was an unlawful order, on February 17th, Parliament is back, which would throw the Liberals for a tizzy because Justin Trudeau's resigned and they don't have a leader yet.
Pensions might be in trouble.
Yeah, some of those pensions might be in trouble, although we already know that that the socialists, the Sikh socialist Jagmeet Singh, will not be casting a vote of non-confidence until him and his commie buddies get their 6-year pension. It's amazing to me that a commie is so concerned with the pension when the reality is he should just be like the common man and not get a government pension. So even if Parliament goes back, there's a good chance the election won't be called until March. That's my 2 cents.
Exactly. At the earliest. Hey, it just dawned on me. I meant to say this in our last. So pretty historical. 13 premiers get together, go to DC to have a talk with the president. Oh, hey, that's never happened before. Why hasn't that happened before? Oh, probably because we have this thing called the Prime Minister. Yeah. Generally, they do that, right? On behalf of the federal government, speaking on behalf of the union. But because it just goes to show you, we have the most ridiculously inept, lame duck prime minister in the history of Canada.
But he is busy though, Matt. He is busy. We're going to cover this as well in the news.
Paris.
Well, we're going to cover this in the news brief that apparently Justin Trudeau is planning on burning 18,000 liters of jet fuel for his farewell tour. As he's saying all of his goodbyes and leaving Parliament, he plans on burning 18,000 liters of jet fuel. So he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Charging us more by way of carbon tax and yet burning more jet fuel in a month than Canadians will in 10 years.
The planes are pretty heavy when you have his costume wardrobe in them. So
all that makeup, all that black makeup, all the different shades of black makeup, it really, it takes up a lot of room.
Indian garbs, one for lunch, one for breakfast, one for dinner.
So we'll have more. This is a developing story, but I was glad to hear the JCCF. So I wasn't personally. I was surprised when the judge said that he would have an expedited hearing given the urgency of it, which is good. Now, whether the judge says, parliamentarians get back to work is a whole other issue, but we're off to a good start. So we'll have more developments as this goes on.
I don't think he is. I think Canada's judicial system's a disaster. Anyways,
there's
Andrew,
a few good ones here and there.
We have a fun segment that we like to do from time to time when we get some questions in, and that's our mailbags segment, which you can hit us up at. Do we have a mailbag, or it's just literally the Proton email?
It's Liberty Dispatch at pm.me.
Liberty Dispatch
at pm.me. Liberty Dispatch at pm.me. That's where you hit us up. And we got we had two, so we got some other stuff that it's kind of kooky, and we're not going to talk about it because it's like, go watch this video of this weird guy. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just not going to do that. So what we do have are two interesting comments. One's an interesting comment, and one is an interesting observation that I think we will laugh at and then cry at. So I'll read the first one. So this is Ryan. Ryan writes, "Hey guys, I'm a big fan and truly appreciate your contribution to the fight against common ignorance. Speaking of fighters, Trudeau is a self-proclaimed fighter. I think his declaration of having Canadians' backs was quite possibly a reference to the wrestling, jiu-jitsu, another MMA term of having back control over Canadians. Having back control is definitely a controlling and advantageous position over opponents. Justin's a fighter, all right. We're the real opposition. Thanks again, brothers." So maybe that's what he meant. Yeah, I mean,
we were thinking along the same lines because I think we said it was stabbing or Well,
bent over a table, Ryan. Getting spanked with a ruler, or it could be a rear naked chokehold. Yeah, could be that too.
Yeah, it's certainly more plausible than him, having our back as in supporting us.
Really being pro Canada.
Yeah, we've seen just what that looks like over the last almost decade at this point. So yeah, appreciate the comment. Everybody, please reach out to us. Comment on the videos. If you comment on the videos, we'll read them. We'll check it out. We had a lot of comments when we did our Pierre Polyev one. Most of them terrible. Turns out people only can think in binaries in Canada, Andrew. So if we kind of like throw a wrench in the gears and we're like, well, kind of Pierre, but not really, people don't like that. But anyways, we have another one, and this comes to us from Levi. So I'll read this one. Levi, thank you so much for reaching out to us at libertydispatch.pm.
Libertydispatch at pm.me.
I don't know why that's so hard for me. Anyways, Levi wrote this. You're doing good work. Thank you. I have benefited from your content, and you contributed to me keeping my sanity during dark COVID years. Thank you. It was also cathartic for us. So thank you for all you continue to do. God bless you. I'm not sure how your ads work, but did you know that you are advertising for the COVID jabs in your most recent podcast on Spotify? We did not, because Spotify just does that sometimes. At the beginning of the episode, there was an advertisement from the Nova Scotia Health Authority. Was that the one where we literally talked about Nova Scotia Health, Andrew?
I don't know if it was.
Okay. Anyways, we've talked about that, saying it's time to get your flu and COVID shots. Very apropos. This seems incongruent. Maybe you weren't aware. You're lucky I wasn't operating heavy machinery. Yeah. We always give those warnings, and how do we know when they're throwing in vax ads in our... I mean, that's hilarious. I mean... I've
actually met both these guys. I know Ryan and Levi. I met Levi. If this is the guy I'm thinking about, I met him when we did our Politics in the Pulpit conference in Nova Scotia.
Okay. Great.
I met him at the conference. We had a pretty good chat standing outside of our booth. So I've met both these guys. I know them. Appreciate the comments, guys. That's that Spotify thing. When Levi emailed me, I'm like, wait, what? No, don't.
Yeah.
You're talking about BullBitcoin? I said, what are you listening to? He said Spotify. I said, oh, they play ads before, so that's Spotify.
You got to get the ad free package there, Levi.
Or what you can do. Stuff. What you can do is you can either download the Substack app.
Do that, absolutely.
Because when you download the Substack app, you can actually. I'd strongly recommend it, because not only can you listen to all of our podcasts, because our Substack page has a podcast heading, but you can also read all of our weekly blogs there, and you can listen to the news brief, because they're all technically, there's a written post, an audio post, and the video post for our written stuff, news brief, and episode. So the Substack app centralized that. Or if you also want to support something other than Spotify, if you download the Beachhead Media app, at least our regular weekly show, our hour-and-a-half show with the video, you can catch that on Beachhead Media, along with Leadership Now with Dr. Aaron Rock and the Dominion podcast. And for the ladies, you can listen to the Unveiled podcast, which isn't unveiled like removing head coverings, but unveiled like, and we with unveiled face will behold the glory of the Lord. That's 2 Corinthians.
Keep those
2 Corinthians 5:17, maybe 2 Corinthians 5:17, and also Alex's wife Rebecca has her podcast, The Feminine Domain. It's all on Beachhead Media. So download the Beachhead Media app and the Substack app, and you'll get all
content. All good content. So you can't go wrong. Definitely LD Canada at Substack.
ldcanada.substack.com.
I'm so sorry.
Is the website, and the email is libertydispatch@pm.me.
I need to get the graphics into Ecamm so then I can hit them for? And then I can read it. Yes. Anyways, that's it. That's our program's done. We're done for the week. Sayonara, everybody. It's for freedom that Christ has set you free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to yoke of slavery. Until next time, God bless you all.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us and all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.